Welcome to the 1st of August of the API meeting. Time flies fast. And yeah, I'm going to share my screen. Cool. Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Great. Um, I don't think there is anything new in the down list. Anything people are bring up first in the SPR list?
Yeah, I didn't make progress on my items. I was mostly look into this Hermes implementation, Node API for Hermes. Yeah.
Cool. That's funny. Yeah, I
Um,
think I'm sorry, please go ahead.
I was just going to point out that NAPI stabilization criteria requirement for alternative VM. I
Yeah.
saw you made some changes there according to, I guess it's in the pull request that you have there. Yes. Um, is there anything we want to talk about this? Because otherwise, I went through it and it looks okay. So I would also approve this.
I think the only notable thing is that how the wording will be like Ben pointed out that the word implementable might be vague when it reads to people. So Ben suggested that to reword like can the new API must be implemented in terms of available VM APIs rather than implementable because the word implementable might sound like anything is possible. As long as you put effort on it. But if we reward it like implemented in terms of available APIs, that would be more restrictive and more. I think it's more easy to assess if it's actually implementable. And I already applied the suggestion, and
Mhm.
yeah,
Okay. Well, I've also just given my approval to this as well.
I think I might have a second thought. Might be. I can also reward this implementable to be similar with the one. Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, it would be great if you can take a look at it. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else to talk about on this one? Cool. Thank you. I think we chatted about this issue previously in Node add-on about debug build of Node.js, crashing the text. I gave it a shot, and I think it's in an issue in the test itself that we didn't uh, escape properly inside a underscore. So basically, the issue is like I think I can get back to the issue. There's a backtrace. Um, well, the backtrace is not super
Mhm.
intuitive. Maybe I can change my screen sharing and I'm going to
Yeah,
switch to
I would have never guessed it was because of the handle scopes based off of the stack trace.
yeah, sharing my screen again. So
Okay.
it's the VS Code screen, and I'm going to launch the debugging build. Here we go. So this is the function that behaves wrongly, and when it crashes at the point where it invokes the native function. So yeah, that's basically where I understand it that the function here actually crashes at this place, and when we look at the backtrace, it actually crashes at the building function where it's called equal strict handler. I mean, it's not 100% aligned with the triple equal operation, but I mean, that's how this is being implemented in Grid. And if we look at this function, it's basically equivalent to this operation. So we can find that we are calling a add-on function here, and the return value is kind of being in wrong state, and consequently, this triple equal operation cannot be leads to the crash because it accessed a wrong value and leads to this command fault.
Okay.
And yeah, that's basically how it will rise up in a debugger. I think it's more intuitive than the backtrace here because I don't think the backtrace represents many meaningful things like empiric or anything. Like I don't really understand the backtrace here, but I mean it's just yeah, that's basically how debuggers will help in investigating the issue here.
Okay. So I can then try running this branch again on my node debug build and see if it succeeds. The question that I would have then is how is the debug build different such that it would end up crashing there, whereas the release build does not?
When VL is compared with debug build, there will be more checks and there will be more um, correctness checks. So I would just assume that in debug build, VL is more strict about the if a handler is correctly escaped from a function. So yeah, that's my assumption. I didn't look into the details about escape handler scope, but that's my assumption that debug build will do more
Right.
correctness check. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So I'll go ahead and test this branch with my debug build, and I will let you know how it checks out.
cool. Thank you.
By the way, do we run this debug build tests in
Uh,
our repo?
I don't think so because this requires a debug build on node, not a debug build on node add-on API. So it's more cumbersome to set up in this application. And notably, building a Node.js debug build will be like 10 to an hour cost. So it's not trivial comparing to our build here, which takes like 1 to 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So it's time consuming.
Yeah, there's currently that I know of, there's no pre-built debug versions of Node that you can fetch because in our CI here, we just fetch Node for the various release versions that we want using that setup node GitHub action. I don't think
Yeah.
there's equivalent for debug versions of Node.
Maybe we can set up a debug build in our Jenkins where it can run on a daily basis. I think we have a issue
Yeah.
tracking this. think it's
That
this
one
one.
there. Mhm.
Yeah,
It's been around for years, but I don't know. There was never any movement on it.
but I think it's more like if we can commit some time to. Anyway, I think mm, we can
Yeah, it
keep
would require
this
to
issue
change
in the list.
built infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
Because currently, like we're talking, for example, about this embedding tests, they currently fail on for the same things as they fail on debug build. There are some thread issues identified by the AT engine, for example. Uh,
Mm.
I mean, like, I'm talking about existing embedded tests, like not anything new.
I think
But we don't run this debug stuff, so yeah,
we run debug build test in the node.js core repo for
we do.
every yeah, like this job. So it's in the test commit job that runs debug build on on machine, and I think there are other debug build as well, but we don't run it in the node add-on API repo. Um,
Um, but for us to run it on Node API add-on, like we need to get somehow like a node which compiles with debug bits, right? And we don't drop it anywhere, don't we?
no, we don't publish the official debug, the official version of it.
Mhm.
So it has to be compiled every time if we need them, which is so that's why I said that if even if we are going to add a job here, it's probably worth um, for daily, like nightly run instead of for every pull request in the node add-on API because it will like take an hour to run a test.
Mhm. Okay.
I wonder if it's possible somehow to extend Node.js core kind of build so we can somehow bring this Node add-on API and test it there. So I think this way it will be probably just additional few minutes instead of like you said hours.
Yeah, um, maybe.
Is there a reason we do not publish the debug version of Node? Is it just resources and stuff? Do we know?
Well, I don't think it's kind of resource stuff. It's more like we don't expect people to use debug build.
Yeah.
Um, the debug build is only intended for Node.js or developers.
Yeah.
So why should we bother publishing debug build where I think if people are doing some weird things in add-ons, the debug build might be more likely to crash for them. And
Mhm.
I don't think there's any reason that we don't do or we do. It's just more just like we don't expect people to use debug build in production.
Right.
But I believe like then we build Node.js, we do it in several stages, and I believe like one of the stages we build in Node.js binaries, we put them somewhere. So effectively, next kind of whatever test builds, they're just picking up existing binaries. At least then I was kind of playing with embedding tests with what I saw. Like I believe like Jenkins or something, we put it some kind of temporary locations, all with different built artifacts, so they can be
Um,
picked up by other kind of builds.
yeah, that could be an option, but I mean, it needs some effort to set the jobs up because I don't think it's quite easy to set it up. Like we have to share the artifacts between the jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not personally involved with the build team, but yeah, I would assume that it will need some effort in setting the job up. I don't think there's anyone opposing that.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's keep this issue open for some time. Maybe one day we can get there.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
And yeah, please take a look at the progress. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
There is a open pull request for adding a shared buffer area in Node. I think I took a look on it and it's being updated as well. And I'm going to take a look at it again. And feel free to comment on this pull request as well. I'd be appreciated.
I'm sorry, I was leaving a comment in that issue. Can you repeat what you were talking about? The shared array buffer API. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying that please take a look at this pull request.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. We can take a look. Yeah.
Thank you. I think for this ABI stability pull request, thank you, Vladimir, for taking a look at it. And I think it should be ready to land.
Yeah, if you could just read some comments about some maybe wording and stuff like that. So yeah, like we discussed last week, I pretty much agree with overall direction. And just I don't know, it's you may want to accept it or not, but yeah, because there have been also I think Nick made some also comments about some wordings. If you could just simply review it, but
Yeah, I
again,
should have applied all the suggestions. So yeah.
maybe Kevin can also suggest because I'm not English speaker, yeah, native English speaker, so thankfully maybe my suggestions is not that great. So yeah. But one point I just suggested to be a little bit clear about with enums, we want to be like 32-bit integers. So
Yeah,
like,
it's being updated here. The
oh, you
progress.
already applied them?
Yeah, the
Oh,
progress
oh,
has been updated.
sorry, I kind of just saw like it's only one commit. You probably somehow to merge it all together.
Yeah, I usually squash the commits if necessary
Oh, okay,
because we will land a pull request
okay,
squash at the end. So yeah.
okay. Sorry, I didn't look into details. I just for some reason I assumed since one commit, like no extra commits been made. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
So I
clear.
did take a look at this, and I think to me it does make sense. Basically, enums that are coming as out parameters may be extended, how we discussed in uh, that week when I was here. So I guess maybe 2 weeks ago, how we discussed that, if there's a new type that gets added, it's possible that your add-on may get this new type. So you have to be mindful in your add-on code that that is a possibility. And then
Yeah.
for enums that are in parameters, they will be functioning based off of the Node API version that you build with. That's
Yeah,
right.
and for in parameters, I think it's also worth mentioning that mm, so if the add-on is being built with an older NPI version and passing an unknown value to that specific node API version, but is introduced in a new NPI version, I think the behavior should be okayish, but like said, but the value is still unknown to the specific node API version. Like if the float 16 array is introduced in node API version 11, and the value for the node float 16 array is assuming like 10. If if people pass in 10 integer 10 and they were being built with node API version like 9, which does not have the value float 16 already been defined, that should be an undefined behavior because even if a add-on is being oh sorry. So if because we do not check the exhaustiveness of a integer value enum value already, so this statement that the behavior is undefined is just reflecting the current status.
Right. Okay. So say your add-on, say you do a call to get typed array info, and it is now returning float 16 because we've added it. And since that's an out parameter, we are saying that that
Sorry,
is
this is
possible.
the in parameter.
Right. So now, but say before I call this in parameter, say I want to like clone my typed array or whatever. So I call
Yeah.
first get typed array info, and then it gives me an enum value. And then I call create typed array, explicitly giving to it the value that I got from get typed array info.
Yeah.
And in this situation, when we say undefined behavior, are we saying that it may work and it may not? Like, I don't know what we mean specific.
Well, the runtime, I mean, the Node.js core itself is trying to make it work, but we cannot say sure for other runtimes. But I mean, the when I say the behavior is undefined because the current Node.js um, code is not behaving correctly, and it may because it did not check exhaustively about the value. That's why I say it's undefined behavior, and people should be able to identify the behavior at development time. Well, I think it's not about temporary. It's the API get the back here to the command. I think Vladimir commented on it.
It was in the,
Yeah, this one. So like in this the API function. So in this case, the release function does not check. Yeah, it does not exhaustively check the mode. And if we added in the new mode, or so sorry, it's not about new mode. It's like if people passing a integer value here, like 3 or 4, it's just as if nothing happened because we use mode as equal check and we didn't check any
Right.
unknown values. But if we add a, but I don't think we should limit us from adding a new value in the future because people are doing it wrongly.
Okay.
So if we talk about like float 16 array, if we go back, like what should we do? Like if somebody tries to create, say like they're using. So for example, we introduce this new this PR of the float 16 array will be merged.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
as I said, like we would return, for example, with this new type float 16 array.
yeah.
Question is like, should we accept this float 16 array as an input without any kind of version check? Not.
I think it should not, particularly about the case Kevin mentioned that if we want to clone a tabular array, they can already get the float 16 from the API, get a tabular array info. And if they didn't check the value because the get the tabular info returned successfully about float 16 array, and they opaquely just pass the returned value to the API created tabular array, that should also succeed because I don't think that we should throw an adder in that case because the API get tabular array info returned a successful value.
Yeah,
Okay.
I I would agree with that. Um, Let me read this again. For extended our version guarded based on they were introduced. The result of passing an unknown integer is yeah, I mean, to me it makes sense that it would just work, but I think it is also covered by the statement the result of passing an unknown integer value to node API functions is undefined. Um, and in this particular instance, I would imagine that this undefined behavior is just it working because in this specific instance, both the core knows about this new value. So it
Yeah,
would just work. But in other cases, it may not.
I
At
think the
least
other
that's
case is specifically about the case like node v20 where it does not support float 16 array.
right.
I guess my question, like, do we break Node API version or not? Like, so definitely, we discussed like we different runtimes they have different capabilities, right? And like for example, Node 20, Node 22 will not support this with float 16, but will 24 and up will support it. But is there a way for people who write in extensions to determine if float 16 even supported by Node API or not?
They can use API get global get from global to see if float 16 array is there. I think that's
Mhm.
how people do in JavaScript.
Yep.
Otherwise, I don't see there's a meaningful way to determine if a JavaScript API is available or not.
So what we're saying, like if we add a new float 16 array, this thing will be available to Node API versions, all previous Node API versions, essentially. Is correct? So we're effectively patching behavior of
Um, or specifically, we would see that the enum value as a constant, and if people hardcode a constant, hardcode the float 16 array constant in a like Node API version lower than presumably 11, that should be fine. But that's all. That's on your like on the add-ons maintenance burden that they passed a value that's unknown to the Node API version that they are compiled with because they hard code the enum constant value.
No, I guess my question like about this float 16 array kind of what do we want? Like we just want to add this enum without any versioning, right? Without specifying or checking version.
So if I understand your question correctly, you're saying that
Yeah,
should
if we
we
go
do
to
runtime check or should we just got the enum value behind the macro version guard?
yeah, it's what I was just trying to understand. Like I personally put a lot of comments here, and this developer
Yeah.
already did some changes one way, another way. Like it was like a lot of people jumping in and did all the suggestions. Like I'm afraid that the developer maybe already kind of lost if and kind of may hate us with all the different suggestions. So like I hope like this time if we provide some suggestion, we need to be kind of more determined like about
Yeah.
what we and I guess my question, like, what do you want to do here? Like, if you look, for example, we suggest native API types. So, do we add this new enum with if def or not if def an API experimental? Because according to your document, I believe we don't need to do any API experimental anymore. We do.
Uh, I would say that we definitely do not need to add a runtime version check. But for this version guard, I think
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
we can still got it behind a version so that if a add-on is compiled with a like presumably Node API version 11, they will definitely be confident that an API float 16 array enum is being defined. So they don't
Mhm.
have to redefine this constant value themselves. So it's just um, about the headers compatibility, not about the runtime's compatibility, because we can already say that we cannot support float 16 array on Node.js with 20 or 22.
Right.
So we still version enum, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
we whatever is code right now has let's say if def we keep it right.
For this part, yeah, I would agree. So that I think it's more easier for add-ons to like if they define another version 11, they will definitely be able to get API Explorer signal array instead of getting an undefined symbol.
Okay, so now I better understand. Okay, so Kevin, you good with it? Just
Can you scroll up just a little bit to the previous line of code? Okay, okay, we just it doesn't make sense to have this. Okay, because I'm going back and forth. To me, it does make sense to define the enum in a guard so that my add-on can do if def float 16 array, then I can use the symbol as is. Otherwise, maybe I define it myself or I do something different in my add-on. I Yeah, I'm leaning towards now having the definition be
Um,
guarded, but then
yeah.
nothing in. We don't need any runtime guards or runtime checks.
So I think my point is more about that people will have a way to determine if the MPI flow sitting array is defined or not. It's not
Yes.
about, I think it's not about if it should be guarded or not. So as long as we have like we have this um, macro,
Mm-hmm.
it seems good, sufficient to me because people will have a way to determine that this symbol is being defined.
Yes. I'm on board with that.
yeah, don't forget that this definition only works for C, C++, right? Like if people, for example, adapting this Node API in Rust or like .NET, not we don't have the same mechanism, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
So then let's revisit the document if the document have this wording. Wait a second. Let's see what the document here says. Um, it's documented. Tab can be considered to be extensible, and I think we didn't say. Oh yeah, I think I added this word. So extended version guarded person. So I think
Hmm.
I'm going to link here.
yeah, like, in API status extensions, we didn't put any if defs, right?
Yeah, and another API.
Hmm.
We don't need experimental.
So what we're saying, we're gonna remove this if an API experimental, but we ask a developer just define this macro.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I think that, yes.
somehow we're moving towards this features like what we discussed. Um,
Cool. I think uh, I'll update accordingly. Do we have any other comments?
so it sounds like the APR can be significantly simplified, essentially, right? Like we saying that just we add a new enum type, like we're just using this new enum type. The only kind of probably we want them to add. It's probably not part of this work, but it will be great if they can add this exhaustive check.
I think we also mentioned in previous
Yeah, okay.
and
Last
here
time.
that we need a new NPI status. It's NPI not supported, so that the progress can be backported to previous version lines.
Okay. Because in node 20, the enum would not be defined, as well as the macro definition of has float 16 would not be defined.
Uh, Sorry, I think on node 20, the enum will still be defined because I think the NPI headers identical across should be identical across different node versions. But the
Okay.
runtime behavior will be different that on version 20 or 22, if we add on post in a NPI float 16 array to like an NPI create type array, the NPI create type array will return a NPI not supported,
Yes. Okay. That makes
and it
sense.
will only available on Node version 24, but it's not versioned with Node API version.
Yes. That makes sense.
And macro still also will be defined, right? Because technically, that's
Yeah,
what
the
we pretty much.
macro will also be defined because it's only about if this particular constant is being defined or not.
Right.
I see. Okay. Okay. So then
But
the
why do we?
only way to know if your your engine supports it is by checking if the symbol exists. The JavaScript property float 16 array exists in global scope.
Yeah, I think so.
Hmm. So then, hmm.
Do we need to have new function which would actually does these checks for us, like
Um,
like
I
kind of
think that
some kind
would
of
be cumbersome
helper function?
because not all JavaScript, um, not all JavaScript API, new JavaScript APIs are like specifically taking the explicit resource management proposal as an example. There are multiple new JavaScript globals, which is like the disposable stack and async disposable stack. And there are also symbols like symbol.dispose.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, Node.js released symbol.dispose on 20 and 24, but the disposable stack will only be available on Node 24. And the syntax is also only available on Node 24. So I think that'll be tricky for us to provide a single API to say if this feature is supported or not.
Mm.
Hmm.
Okay, we can decide it about it later.
I just find it like I understand how we're saying that the headers are shared across all node versions. I just find it odd that the symbol would exist if it's not supported in the runtime.
Um, Actually, I think that's already the case if Node API is being implemented by, for example, other JavaScript engines, and they do not support the latest JavaScript features. Um, when I said that, I'm referring to Quick.js. They, or I think I just saw a table where, yeah, I think it's um, it's very like every runtime has a very different language target, and I also recall that. But yeah, this I don't think this is really relevant. Sorry. So I would interpret that as even if a runtime supports Node API, it may support the API function, a Node API functions defined in the header. Like in particular, they can create a Node API function. They can create throw a JavaScript exception, but they might not support every latest JavaScript syntax or buildings, or I think that's a fair assumption.
Yes, like I remember, like then I was working on this Node API implementations, and I started at this point. Hermes, for example, didn't support big numbers, big integers.
Yeah,
So like I couldn't implement them, but at some point, Hermes engine introduced them. So thankfully, I was able to provide Node API implementation for them. So yeah, it is
yeah,
possible that even like all new JavaScript features are not necessarily being picked up by all JavaScript engines at the same time.
right. And
Yeah,
also
okay,
not,
I can see that. Okay, I take back my statement. I think it where I said it doesn't make sense to me to have the symbol there if it's not. Okay, yeah, I mean, then it would just be runtime errors of node status not supported versus a compilation error. And plus, you probably wouldn't want it to be a compilation error if you want your module to be able to be targeted for different engines to run, I guess. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm back on board. I'm on
yeah,
board.
I think another good example is API creates external error buffer and an external buffer, which will return a API
Mhm.
status of no external buffers allowed.
Yep. I see
Uh,
that there. An API notes. Yep. Yep. I remember that being added.
yeah, so it's also a runtime flag. I think on there, and election actively disable this external buffer. So I think that's also the case that even if this function, the symbol is here, it might not be supported at runtime. So yeah,
Okay. Yep. I'm back on board.
Yeah, in Hermes, for example, currently they don't support external strings, for example, right? Like, or like they support it the way that it's not compatible with Node API. Let me put this way. Yeah.
So now, is there anything that we need to say in the pull request? Because I know there's a lot of comments, there's a lot of different discussions.
I think we need to first land this progress first to get progress on the 416 array as a second step. Otherwise, I think we will have to go back to this in maybe accessibility guarantee again and again. So I think we need to finalize on this stability guarantee first.
Okay.
So Kevin, do you want to read it like before we merge it?
Yes. 5.9.
So for what it's worth, I will update this wording accordingly, and I would appreciate another review after that.
Okay, I've added it to my watch. And I will take a look when I get the update.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I think we covered almost every progress here. Anything in particular that people need to bring up before we closing out? I think we only have 4 minutes left.
No, I don't have any skills. Do we need anything like needs triage, like anything new popped up, or?
I don't think so. I don't think there's any new in the charge list. This one is in progress already, and yeah, please take a look at it. It should be fine.
Yeah,
Other than
I
that, I
think
don't
like
see
it's
anything.
change is great. Like, yeah, I believe I saw similar issues somewhere else, but yeah, I think it's one of his gotchas. it's, it's a good catch, actually. It's a good finding.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Great. If not, I think we can closing out, and thank you for joining the call, and have a great weekend. Bye.
Alrighty.
See you later. And
Bye.
get out.
Yeah.
See you, man.
Nice weekend.
You too. Bye.